If you think dying in a horror game is frustrating, try doing it every 15 minutes while a serial killer hunts you down in a derelict hospital. This isn't just a slasher, it's a psychological prison where your memories are the only thing that don't reset. Every time you wake up back at the start with that same fatal wound, the walls feel like they're closing in just a little bit tighter. You have to learn the killer's patterns and solve puzzles under a crushing time limit that makes every second feel like a heartbeat. It forces you to choose between exploring for answers or sprinting for your life. And usually, both choices lead to the same bloody end. You'll eventually realize that the loop isn't just a mechanic. It's the killer's favorite way to play with his food. But what happens when you finally reach the end of the timer and there's nowhere left to run?
This is what happens when corporate greed meets absolute cosmic nightmares. You are basically a glorified debt collector sent into the most twisted, reality-bending environments to recover assets that definitely don't want to be found. The atmosphere is thick with a grimy, industrial dread that makes you feel like a tiny gear in a very dark machine. What makes this a must-play on Steam right now is how it balances the stress of your job with the pure terror of the things lurking in the dark. You aren't a hero, you're an employee, and in this world, human life is the cheapest thing on the balance sheet. You'll be too busy counting your scrap to notice the shadow behind you until it's too late. The real question is, how much of your soul are you willing to trade for a paycheck?
Don't let the hand-drawn art style fool you into thinking this is a cozy visual novel. This is a brutal descent into existential dread and body horror that questions the very nature of your reality. You are told to kill a princess to save the world, but the more you talk to her, the more the world begins to rot and shift around you. The voice acting is top tier, whispering doubts into your ear until you don't know who the real monster is anymore. Every choice you make twists the princess into something new, something more terrifying, and something that might just be a reflection of your own mind. It's a psychological masterclass that stays with you long after the credits roll. But if you actually manage to kill her, are you sure you're the one who survives? The plague is back, and it's hungrier than ever in this bleak, surrealist nightmare. If you played the previous games, you know the drill. Managing hunger, exhaustion, and infection while a town dies around you. But this time, the time travel mechanic adds a layer of mental torture that the series hasn't seen before. You aren't just fighting a disease, you're fighting the inevitability of death itself in a town that feels like it's actively trying to reject you. The atmosphere is so oppressive, it's almost physical. And the local folklore is more unsettling than any jump scare could ever be. It's a game about impossible choices, where every person you save might mean 3 more have to die. Just wait until the town starts talking back to you in ways you can't ignore. The isometric perspective usually gives you a sense of safety, but Holston uses a rotating camera trick that will make your skin crawl. Set in a 90s Polish town consumed by an organic, pulsating rot, this game nails the "something is very wrong here" vibe perfectly. The pixel art is disgusting in the best way possible, depicting mutated flesh and overgrown slime that looks far too alive. When the combat kicks in, the camera shifts to over the shoulder, making those cramped hallways feel even more claustrophobic. You're hunting for your lost friend, but the deeper you go, the more you realize the townspeople haven't just disappeared, they've become part of the scenery. You might find your friend, but will you even recognize what's left of them?
Puppet Combo is the king of low-poly terror, and this is their masterpiece of pure, unadulterated slasher horror. You are trapped in a house with a cannibalistic butcher, and the VHS-style filters make everything feel like a lost, cursed movie from the 80s. This isn't a game where you fight back. It's a game where you hide under beds and pray the sound of your breathing doesn't give you away. The AI is ruthless, hunting you by sound and sight with a persistence that will have you sweating through your shirt. It's raw, it's ugly, and it's incredibly effective at making you feel like a victim. You'll think you found the exit, only to realize the butcher has been standing right behind the door the whole time.
The Dark Pictures anthology finally went to space, and it brought something much worse than aliens with it. This is sci-fi horror that leans heavily into the imposter trope, where the crew is being replaced by something that mimics them perfectly. The tension comes from the paranoia. You never know if the person standing next to you is your friend or a biological nightmare waiting to burst out. It uses the power of current-gen hardware to create some of the most unsettling facial animations and body horror we've seen in years. Every decision you make determines who lives and who gets consumed by the deep space infection. It's all fun and games until you realize you're the only person on the ship who hasn't changed.
This game looks like a cursed PlayStation 1 disc found in an abandoned shrine, and it plays even weirder. It's a first-person survival horror set in feudal Japan, filled with monsters straight out of traditional folklore, but twisted into something unrecognizable. The combat is clunky and desperate, making every encounter feel like a fight for your actual life. The world is a jagged, surreal maze of shadows and blood, where the map won't help you, and the gods have clearly abandoned you. It's the kind of game that makes you feel uneasy just looking at the screen, with a sound design that's mostly wet, squelching noises in the dark. You might make it to the center of the labyrinth, but you definitely won't be coming back out the same way.
From the creators of Little Nightmares comes a game that is somehow even more disturbing and grotesque. You play as a brother and sister navigating a hellish island filled with giant, distorted animals that represent the darkest parts of the human psyche. The scale of the monsters is terrifying, making you feel like an ant about to be crushed by a world that hates you. It's got that signature creepy yet beautiful art style, but the horror is much more visceral and in your face this time around. Every puzzle is a life or death situation, where one wrong move means a gruesome end at the hands of a stitched-together creature. The island is full of secrets, but some things are better left buried in the dirt.
If you like your horror with a side of high-end investigation and occult rituals, this is the one you need to install. You play as Alan Rebels, a paranormal investigator who uses a mystical pendulum to see things that shouldn't exist. The island of Godstone is a hauntingly beautiful open-zone map that hides some of the most disturbing cult lore I've ever read. The way the game uses lighting to reveal hidden messages and ghostly figures is genuinely impressive and will keep you constantly pivoting your camera in fear. It's a slow-burn mystery that rewards you for paying attention, but the more you learn, the more the ghosts start to notice you back. By the time you realize what the cult was actually trying to summon, you'll already be part of the ritual.
A lot of people were worried about a Silent Hill game set in 1960s Japan, but those worries vanished the second the flower rot started appearing. This is a beautiful floral nightmare where the horror comes from the decay of the mind and the beauty of death. Instead of rusty metal and fog, you get vibrant red spider lilies and a creeping fungus that covers everything in its path. The story is a deep dive into Japanese folklore and psychological trauma that feels like a return to form for the franchise. It's unsettling in a way that's hard to put into words. A quiet, blooming dread that slowly chokes the life out of the environment. Just don't get too close to the flowers, or they might start growing under your skin.
The original Darkwood is a legendary cult classic, and the sequel takes that top-down survival horror to an even more terrifying level. You are still trapped in a forest that is constantly shifting and expanding, but the new weather systems and night events make surviving until dawn feel nearly impossible. The game never uses jump scares. It relies entirely on its incredible sound design and your own imagination to ruin your sleep. You'll hear something scratching at your barricaded door,
and you have to decide if you're going to peek through the cracks or just hide in the corner with your axe. The forest doesn't want you there, and it's finally starting to show its true face. If you hear the trees start to scream, it's already too late to run.
You might be thinking, since when is Subnautica a horror game? And the answer is, since you went deeper than you were supposed to. The sequel doubles down on the thalassophobia, introducing a new alien world where the Leviathans are larger, faster, and much more aggressive. There is nothing scarier than being in total darkness, 1,000 meters below the surface, and hearing a roar that shakes your entire submarine. The bioluminescent beauty of the ocean is just a mask for the predators that use light to lure you into their jaws. Every dive is a gamble with your oxygen and your life. And the further down you go, the more you realize that something is watching you from the trenches. What's waiting at the very bottom is something that should have stayed extinct.
Capcom has finally given Leon Kennedy his darkest, most brutal chapter yet, and it's a survival horror masterpiece. This isn't the action-heavy Leon from RE4. This is a man broken by years of bioterror, trapped in a decaying European city that feels like a living graveyard. The gore engine is in full effect here, with physics-based damage that makes every gunshot and bite feel disturbingly real. The atmosphere is thick with a new type of viral infection that turns the environment itself against you, with walls that pulse and streets that shift. It's a relentless, high-budget nightmare that proves Resident Evil is still the king of the genre. But as Leon fights his way through the carnage, he starts to realize that the biggest threat might be his own failing sanity.
This is the ultimate evolution of the backrooms and liminal space genre, and it is the most unsettling thing you can play on Steam right now. There are no traditional monsters chasing you with axes. Instead, the horror comes from the infinite, empty architecture that feels like it's mocking your existence. The game uses perspective-based puzzles that force you to manipulate the environment in ways that defy logic and physics. You'll walk through a door and find yourself in a mall that goes on for miles, only to turn around and find the door is now a solid wall. The silence is the loudest thing in the game, punctuated only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of your own footsteps. You are completely alone, yet you can't shake the feeling that something is standing just around the corner, waiting for you to blink. And once you see what's actually hiding in the shadows of the food court,